from Hollywood, I'm Martin Grove, welcoming you to our Screendollars podcast, Box Office Autopsy. Right now, we'll look at the movie marketplace and analyze how things are going and where they're going, sharing some opinions from my perspective after decades of talking about Hollywood on CNN, Entertainment Tonight, and as a Hollywood Reporter columnist. Tom Cruise's Top Gun Maverick was flying solo high in the box office skies as other studios sat out weekend 2 of Paramount and Skydance Media's mega hit. There was a surprisingly low skydive from Maverick's muscular Memorial Day mega launch as moviegoers hammered home how happy they are to have Cruise back in top form, and movie theaters open again. On today's Box Office Autopsy, we'll check out Maverick's second weekend strength, we'll look at its modest horror film competition, and we'll focus on Hollywood's next tentpole, Jurassic World Dominion, opening June 10th. And in this week's Oscar Outlook Spotlight, we'll explain what the few films with an early Best Picture Oscar buzz are up against to get nominated. Meanwhile, what's been helping to drive Maverick's box office boom are the premieres it's been celebrating around the globe, all of which were possible thanks to Cruise's commitment to massive personal promotion of his movies. As we can tell from this quick world tour of Maverick's premieres in the global media spotlight.
Josh Horowitz welcoming you to the USS Midway aircraft carrier for a premiere like no other.
Probably 1,000 people on this thing. This is crazy.
Hey, I'm just pinching myself.
We are just moments away from a historic arrival from Tom Cruise. That is not just a helicopter. That's Tom Cruise in a helicopter.
Tom Cruise just landed in a helicopter.
Joining us on the USS Midway, Tom Cruise.
36 years later, and here we are. It's surreal.
Top Gun finally is coming out. This is pretty epic.
Holy smokes, that's beautiful.
Tom, he's such a phenomenal actor. And then he's a movie-making machine, and we all reap the benefits of that.
This is your first premiere.
Yes.
First movie with Tom Cruise.
Yes.
When you see what's on the screen, there's truly never been anything like it in the history of film.
I want to thank Tom Cruise and I want to thank Paramount, and what they've done by representing the work that you do is really to be applauded. So now, someone who needs no introduction to all of you, Tom Cruise.
This day is for you. It's a tribute to you all. And I just can't wait for you to see it.
I'm really thrilled that we're here and we can get to share it with all the sailors and the aviators that we work with.
This is absolutely a spectacular day for the U.S. Navy.
I tell you, this has been a long time coming. Thank you for all you do for our country. And there's something very special about Mexico. They always make me feel so at home. I'm just so happy to be here in Mexico City. Muchas gracias.
Here they come, Tom Cruise.
Top Gun Maverick. Et celui à qui on rend hommage ce soir, Tom Cruise.
welcome to the UK premiere of 2022's most anticipated film, Top Gun Maverick.
We're at the royal premiere in London, about to watch our movie with a crowd of people. That is exciting.
This is absolutely insane. We took over the entire square.
The anticipation for this movie has been building since the late 80s.
This is very special to celebrate this movie. We just can't fake what we got, and I can't wait for people to see it.
We made this for the big screen. It was challenging on every single level, so to hear the audience's response is very special.
I feel the need.
That's what I'm talking about.
Maverick outperformed Hollywood handicappers' expectations for weekend 2, sliding just 32% to $86 million at 4,751 theaters. That's up 16 cinemas from opening weekend. With Maverick's domestic cume at almost $292 million, it's the biggest grossing domestic title ever for Cruise, whose previous record was just over $243 million for 2005's War of the Worlds. Maverick's 32% drop is Cruise's best weekend 2 hold ever, easily overtaking his last super hit, 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout, which skidded just 42.3% in its second frame to $35.3 million, after having opened to just over $61 million. Maverick also goes into the record books as the smallest second weekend domestic slide ever for a film kicking off to $100 million or more, a record held since 2007 by Paramount and DreamWorks Animation's Shrek the Third, with its 33% weekend 2 drop. This weekend, per ComScore, is also the 8th biggest all-time second weekend and Paramount's 9th best three-day weekend ever. Moviegoers abroad also kept Maverick in enviably great box office spirits, bringing its international cume in 64 markets to $257 million and boosting its worldwide total to nearly $549 million. Those international grosses, which were down only 20%, are even more impressive since Maverick's not playing in prime markets like Russia or China, and won't open until June 23rd in South Korea, a top market for Tom Cruise movies. No major studio wanted to risk opening anything opposite Maverick in its second frame, but with so many people having already seen it, and Intelligence puts its total to date at over 22 million people, the case can be made that there really was room in the marketplace for something other than the twin indie horror films exhibs had to settle for this weekend. Neon's R-rated sci-fi horror Crimes of the Future from The Fly director David Cronenberg stars Viggo Mortensen, Léa Seydoux, and Kristen Stewart. Crimes just shocked audiences at the Cannes Film Festival, but it still received a 6-minute standing ovation. Reports said many attendees walked out revolted by some of its on-screen images, but that, of course, could be a selling point in today's twisted domestic marketplace. The critics were a blah 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, but audiences were really rotten at 45%, suggesting Crimes doesn't have a bright future. It opened 10th to $1.1 million at 773 theaters, just slightly ahead of Hollywood handicappers' expectations of 500,000 to 1 million. IFC Films' R-rated thriller Watcher also turned up as a destination for horror fans. IFC picked it up in January at the Sundance Film Festival, where this first feature from director and co-writer Chloe Okuno was nominated for the Grand Jury Prize Dramatic. Critics on Rotten Tomatoes were an okay 85%, but audiences were 64%, pointing to negative word of mouth. Watcher opened in 11th place at 764 theaters to $815,000, in line with the $500,000 to $1 million that Hollywood handicappers were watching for. This quick look will tell you if you should see it or skip it.
What's happening?
They found a woman murdered in her apartment.
They're saying the woman had her head cut off.
A man at the movie theater followed me into the supermarket.
Followed you?
That's him.
Looking ahead now, summer holidays and tentpoles are a winning combination, as we just saw with Maverick, and it looks like another win-win is hitting theaters July 4th weekend. With box office fireworks from Universal and Illumination Entertainment's PG-animated Minions: The Rise of Gru. Here's a quick catch-up on what the Minions will be up to starting July 1st.
My minions will save me.
You like picking on little guys, huh? Well, I am a master of Kung Fu.
Teach-nous Kung Fu pour smoochy smoochy?
I will teach you.
So here I go, it's my shot.
Now you.
This may be the only opportunity that I got.
Tracking scores 4 weeks out show broad playability for this family appeal comedy adventure. Definite interest is strong from all 4 demos. Under 25 men are best with 5 points over norm. Under 25 women are slightly lower, but they're 6 points over norm. Older men and women are down a bit, but still very interested. July 4th is traditionally a great movie-going weekend, and families will fit in a visit to the multiplexes to break up their outdoor activities over the long holiday, if there's something playing they want to see. If there's some rain in the Midwest or along the East Coast, better yet. It helps that Minions is a brand name families know. The original Minions, which reportedly cost just $74 million to make, opened July 10th, 2015 to almost $116 million. It did $336 million domestic and over $823 million international for a global cum of $1.2 billion. It's definitely good news for exhibitors that Minions is opening only in theaters. Day and date openings were suicide missions last year, but happily Hollywood's changed its tune, finally realizing they reduce revenues. Instead, streamers are giving subscribers original movies that could just as easily play in theaters. Actually, Paramount and Jerry Bruckheimer Films' sci-fi action adventure Secret Headquarters, starring Owen Wilson, was opening theatrically August 5th, but is now heading to Paramount+. It's about a young boy finding a secret area under his home that just might be a superhero hideaway. Exhibitors aren't happy Secret's out, but the good news is they still have an event action thriller opening August 5th in Sony's Bullet Train from Deadpool 2 director David Leitch and starring Brad Pitt and Sandra Bullock. A mini-media uproar followed news that Disney and Image Movers' live-action Pinocchio, from Back to the Future director Robert Zemeckis and starring Tom Hanks, will start streaming September 8th on Disney+. But unlike Secret moving to Paramount+, Pinocchio was intended as a Disney Plus original. Some media analysts moaned about Pinocchio not playing theatrically, recalling Zemeckis and Hanks' 2004 stop-motion animation family adventure The Polar Express as a big hit. What Polar, which reportedly cost $165 million, hit was the box office deep freeze, with just $315.2 million worldwide. Critics hated it, with 56% on Rotten Tomatoes, and its audience score was 63%. After a half-dozen or so Pinocchio movies, Disney Plus could be the perfect place for Pinocchio. Time now to focus our Oscar Outlook spotlight on the early Best Picture race conversation. We're nearly halfway through 2022, but if you're thinking about Best Picture nominees, don't bother. Studios have for years held back on opening awards contenders until late in the year, hoping to have the bright, shiny new object Academy members see just before voting. Right now, very few titles have an early Best Picture buzz. Top Gun Maverick and Elvis both just had glitzy premieres at Cannes. Maverick got a great 5-minute standing ovation, and Elvis's 10 minutes of applause was the festival's longest. Both titles have what it takes to compete for Best Picture, including lots of awards marketing money, but they also bring a lot of popcorn movie baggage. Maverick's growing buzz that it's Tom Cruise's best work ever must offset its tentpole image. Elvis must sing loudly at the box office and with critics. There's also The Batman, a global mega hit with over $770 million that reportedly cost $200 million. Mega budgets and comic book roots are now mega negatives with the Academy's far-flung members when it comes to Best Picture nods. The indie action comedy Everything Everywhere All at Once could land a Best Picture nom. It's a surprise hit with 76 million plus globally, 95% fresh with Rotten Tomatoes critics, and reportedly cost just $25 million to make. There's just one problem. Academy members don't usually embrace action or comedy for Best Picture. Next week on Box Office Autopsy, we'll look at what should be a dynamite launch for Jurassic World Dominion. Let's listen now as the women of Dominion discuss the film.
God creates dinosaurs. God destroys dinosaurs. God creates man. Man destroys God. Man creates dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs eat man. Woman inherits the earth.
When we made the first Jurassic Park movie, I was aware that we were creating a character that was unusual in an action film. It was important to Steven and myself that Ellie was a feminist, female action character.
And you're
Look, we can discuss sexism in survival situations when I get back.
Dr. Ellie Sattler was such an iconic character and such an important character because she's a scientist and paleobotanist. It was really important to see an inspiring character like that as a young person.
It felt really exciting that that became a takeaway for people who loved the film. She's badass and physically strong and complicated and funny. I would say that for all the female characters in this franchise.
Stone cold.
I would not mess with her.
I adore that there are so many female characters who are different because we're not all what would typically present as strong, feminine, or a superhero in classic adventure films.
It's so important to have these female role models. Maisie as a character has grown up with Claire as a mother who's like really strong and fiery. Ellie, who's so intellectual and clever and really powerful. DeWanda's character, Kayla, who's a pilot, like super fierce and tough. Still got it. It's been really amazing to work with such strong, independent women.
I feel beyond honored to join this franchise.
From inception, it's had great roles for women, but have a degree of character development and depth, and that's what I saw in Kayla.
You willing to risk your life for people you never met?
You want to ask questions or you want to ride?
Jurassic is a very pro-female franchise. As it started, all the dinosaurs were female. They were women. And they're inherent in the idealization of that female strength, female power.
Hold on tight.
I like saying woman inherits the earth. I really like that.
That's it for today's podcast, but we'll have lots to talk about next week on Box Office Autopsy as the dinos devour the marketplace and climb to the top of the box office chart. Please join us again then, and for now, thanks very much for listening. Time now for our film flashback look at what was happening in Hollywood right around now, way back then. Let's set today's time travel dial for June 5th, 1998. It's hard to believe The Truman Show, which inspired this year's Cannes Film Festival poster, opened 24 years ago as an early summer release. Paramount launched Truman June 5th, 1998, but it's unlikely a studio would give such an unusual film a prime summer date today. Truman was to have opened August 8th, 1997, which would have been okay late summer timing for a unique comedy drama with awards potential. Then it was pushed back to November 14th, a good slot for an awards contender. Finally, it was bumped to the following summer, allowing it more post-production time, but also ensuring Truman didn't compete in 1998's Oscar race against Paramount's mega contender, Titanic. Of course, Titanic won 11 Oscars, including picture and directing. Truman didn't resonate well with Academy voters the next year. Director Peter Weir was Oscar-nominated, but was the only directing nominee without a Best Picture nod. Weir was well regarded for 1985's Witness with Harrison Ford and 1989's Dead Poets Society with Robin Williams, but some bolder-faced names were considered before he was signed, including Tim Burton, Brian De Palma, and Steven Spielberg. Weir was hired in early 1995 after a strong recommendation from writer and co-producer Andrew Niccol, whose screenwriting deal had provided for him to direct. Paramount, however, decided Truman's estimated $80 million budget absolutely required an A-list director, and paid Niccol to agree. Truman star Jim Carrey was Weir's first choice for the role. He cast him after seeing Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, saying Carrey reminded him of Chaplin. But Carrey's role in Truman was a far cry from what fans of his hit comedies like Liar Liar and Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls expected to see him in. His character, Truman Burbank, had lived for some 30 years without knowing his entire life since his corporate adoption at birth following an unwanted pregnancy was actually a carefully staged reality TV show in a world that was really just an elaborate set. Carrey agreed to take a $12 million payday instead of his usual $20 million, helping Weir bring Truman in for a much lower $60 million. Truman opened to a then terrific $31.5 million and wound up doing $125.6 million domestic and just over $264 million worldwide. Critics loved it, scoring 95% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. And when Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert reviewed Truman on their syndicated show, they gave it 2 thumbs up. Better yet, they also apologized to Jim Carrey for predicting, after they saw Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, that he had no future making movies. And that's it for today's podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with another box office autopsy next week. In Hollywood for Screendollars, I'm Martin Grove.